please. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, March 8th. This City Council meeting is being held telephonically and virtually in compliance with state executive and legislative actions responding to the COVID-19 emergency. With that, I'll call this meeting to order. And Krista, if you could please call the roll.
Yes, Councilmember Kolkel.
Here.
Councilmember Soltis.
Here.
Councilmember Harjahausen.
I am present.
Councilmember Samomo.
Here.
Councilmember Porter.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Mayor Wagner.
I am here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you, Krista. If everybody could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Next is approval of the agenda. Regan, do we have any changes tonight?
No changes, Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So I guess Christina moved and Jennifer seconded. Did I get that right, I hope?
Yes, that was great.
To approve the agenda, I call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. The agenda is approved. We do not have any public communication tonight, so we'll move into our first of two public comment periods. Speakers will state their name, address, and organization. Comments are directed to the City Council, not the audience or staff. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to no more than 4 minutes per speaker. With that, I'll look to the audience. If there's anybody in the audience wishing to address council at this time, please raise your hand. Anybody in the audience wishing to address council? Seeing nobody raise their hand, we will have a second opportunity for public comment towards the end of our meeting. Next up is approval of the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C4.
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Sean and seconded by Beth to approve the consent agenda. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. It is unanimous to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Next is new business item number 1, which is to consider appointments to the openings on the Human Services Commission. We did interviews tonight and we have 4 openings and we can appoint any of the 3 or 2 or 3 of the applicants that we interviewed tonight or none. What is council's desire?
I would like to move to appoint Lydia Faltalia to fill position number 3 on the Human Services Commission with the term expiring March 31, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Joe to appoint Lydia Faltalia to fill position number 3 on the Human Services Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2025. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Lydia has been serving on our commission. I think we determined for 3 years. She's been doing an outstanding job. Her passion is clear when she talks about the commission and their work about strengthening communities, minimizing barriers, especially in education. She has lots of great ideas about connecting the commission with the residents, and I know that she will continue to be a valuable asset to the commission as we move forward.
Thanks, Jennifer. Joe, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes. Lydia brings an energy to whatever room she's in that is purely positive and it is infectious. Just seeing her in the room brightens it up. And I know that that's what happens with the Human Services Commission. I know that she brings a great deal of expertise and a great deal of just happiness and can find the best in a bad situation. Unfortunately, the Human Service Commission is looking for those bad situations so we can make them better. And she does wonderful work with that. And just seeing her and staying on with that commission, seeing her at public events, being an ambassador for the city, it's an amazing thing. And I'm happy she's reapplying.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Beth?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I would love to see Lydia get reappointed to the commission. Point of order, can we have her on number 7 since that's her current position?
I don't think it really matters.
Okay.
They both expire.
Sure, that sounds fine. Didn't know if it'd be easier for staff, so thanks.
Any other comments for or against the motion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. It's been moved and seconded to appoint Lydia Fatalia to fill position number 3 on the Human Services Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2025. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It's unanimous to appoint Lydia Fatalia to fill position number 3. Does council wish to take any further action tonight? Beth?
Yes, I would like to appoint Catherine Williams to fill position number 6 with a term on the Human Services Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Beth, seconded by Sean to appoint Catherine Williams to fill position number 6 on the Human Services Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2025. Beth, would you like to speak to your motion?
Catherine has been serving the city well, and she is passionate, particularly about children, and is very well connected in the community. And I think she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the Human Services Commission and her ability to help us connect residents with the services that we can provide.
Thank you, Beth. Sean?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone caught it, but Catherine really wants to bring more services to Covington. So I say anyone that is that committed to seeing that we get our fair share should be on our Human Services Commission. So I wholeheartedly support her.
Thanks, Sean. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? All right, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Catherine Williams to fill position number 6 on the Human Services Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2025. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It's unanimous to appoint Catherine Williams to fill position number 6. Does council wish to take any further action tonight? All right, seeing nobody raise their hand, we do have 2 other positions, and we will continue to take applications for those positions. Thank you all very much. We'll move into new business item number 2. Consider approval of the Silco Park Master Plan. Ethan.
Yeah, good evening, council. The item in front of you right now is a follow-up to the recent presentation that council received on the Silco Park Master Plan. Tonight, we'll present a proposed park master plan that includes modifications based on the feedback from both the Parks and Recreation Commission and the City Council. And if council is agreeable to the plan as presented, then we do ask council to take action and pass a motion approving the park master plan. That would allow us to proceed with an upcoming open house for the project and design work for phase 1 improvements. And at this point, I'll turn it over to our consultant team, HBB Landscape Architecture, And we have Juliet Vong and Merritt over on the call.
Thank you, Ethan. As Ethan mentioned, my name is Juliet. I am a principal at HBB Landscape Architecture, and we're the prime consultant for the park master plan and phase 1 construction. I am going to go ahead and share my screen to go through our proposed master plan. Some of this you will recognize from our last conversation. We did update it based on what we heard from the park board as well as the council, and are proposing a final recommended master plan. Let me go into our full screen mode. Shift my views around a little bit. As usual, it's very hard for me to track both hands waving or needing to ask any questions along the way. So Ethan and Merritt will hopefully recognize that and catch it and help me out if anyone has any questions to discuss. So similar to the last time, we're going to just kind of cruise through some of the background existing conditions, other types of elements that we talked about. We're going to pause a little bit on public outreach. And then we're really just going to get into the final master plan that we're proposing and the phase 1 improvements. So you recognize where we're at in the world with our project site, and of course, all of the conditions that we have on site and the environmental sensitive areas that do affect what we can do on the property. We showed you a bunch of photos last time to kind of give you a flavor of what it is like out at the site, both of the creek areas, some of the better, more forested areas, as well as the open meadows, and the various elements that we looked at in considering master plan opportunities and programming spaces. We had a visioning process where we came up with a number of both kind of imagery as well as phrases, elements that were important to the community that would be represented as part of this process. And we have gleaned additional public input from both the pros plan survey itself, part of that larger citywide planning process, as well as some specific surveys for SoCo Park itself. We showed you 3 different alternatives the last time we presented. We also presented these to the park board to get feedback. The concept 3 intervention was the one that was most preferred, with a few additions and revisions requested. This is what that preferred master plan looked like. Some of the things we did here was the desire for a more permanent restroom, some better relationship between nature play nodes and a more formal play, a little bit more information on kind of this playful art fountain, but overall this concept was very well received. They wanted the biggest play area we could get, and also really thinking about sight lines through the site itself, thinking about how this crossing might occur. And I think we kind of really ended up leaving it fairly open to allow the future progression of design to continue to explore what this crossing wants to look like. And then thinking about just how people would move in and around the site, being able to walk in loops, being able to take their small kids in loops, and being protected if people are in the play area from the potential traffic that could see increase on Wax Road. We have made some changes to the plan as a result of those comments. So we're here today to present this final master plan and get any additional feedback and hopefully approval from the council to move forward. Some of the major changes we made was a permanent restroom. So we've located it as kind of close up as we can and we shifted the parking just slightly down to respond to the comment that you do want to be able to see the majority of the playground from the parking area. Of course, it is mostly ADA parking, with the remainder of the parking to occur on the street and as part of a future town center development. We did leave the mid-block crossing very generous, very wide, and kind of very loosely defined, but we have had further conversations with Public Works about what some temporary crossings might look like, what kind of safety features would happen, what kind of elements might get installed as the park develops potentially on a separate timeline from the future town center. So those conversations will continue to progress. Another major change we did was shift this kind of curb bulb down further so that those first parking stalls are not directly adjacent to the play area. provides a little bit extra separation, and just pulls everything a little further away from that right of way for kids who are playing in the playground. We moved our nodes closer, so there's a good relationship and easy access between the nature play and the more structured play. Shifted a few other things around to accommodate that. And then one of the other major changes is we kind of went back out on site and really thought about where the sight lines occur, how someone could see all the way through to any kind of overlook that we would have, and really fine-tuned the location of that based on those site conditions and those view corridors. And then looking at the programmatic requirements, kind of in concert with the environmental requirements, just had to shift a few more things so that we stayed outside those buffer areas. Did I miss anything, Ethan?
No, I think you captured it well.
I'm gonna, let's see, phase one, I'll go into that a little bit and then we'll pause and see if there's any specific questions. So phase one, as we looked at this, is the areas that you're seeing in this kind of orangish, peachish color. Primary to that is the access along Wax Road, as well as the ADA parking on site. Those are just given baseline requirements. Next to that is looking at integrating some picnic tables and some open space that's required. We're going to need to regrade a number of this area in order to get these frontage improvements in place and get at least the crossing that's most directly closest to the multifamily housing as our at least initial primary direction that we would expect people to walk from. So those would all be part of the base bid of phase one of construction. And you can see that's just over $1 million estimated as part of that improvement. Then we basically added a couple of different alternates, and those alternates are designed based on the feedback we did here for trails first versus more open space. We heard that both from council as well as our park board. So the first alternate would be to integrate more of a loop soft surface trail system so we can interconnect and have a better kind of larger walking route through the park. And then to bring in some of those play nodes, because the playground itself is not part of phase one for more structured play, but we can start to integrate some of those playful elements throughout the park, really using the natural features to create and enhance that playful experience in the park. So that would be kind of along this trail system as part of additive alternate one. And then additive alternate two, if there's funding remaining, depending on how the process plays out, we would look to expand some of the open lawn opportunities. So when I say open lawn, I'm thinking formal, maintained open lawn. We'll have a bit of a slope here, so it will be, but it will still be maintained as a kind of an irrigated grass lawn. We'll expand that if funding is available, but focus additional funding on the trail first. Some of the criteria that we really thought through and had some feedback on and how we developed where the phasing might play out. First and foremost was pedestrian safety, low maintenance, creating a playful space and finding a way to still make sure we can develop this park in the initial phase so that we don't have to do a lot of rework for future phases. So hence that street frontage improvement would essentially amounts to the long-term permanent location for the sidewalk to come in first, and then the rest of the park can be built off of that. And then grant terms and conditions does affect some of what we can do initially, and then ultimately the budget will depend on how much and how far we get on these initial phases. I'm going to take a breath and pause there and see if there are any particular questions or thoughts in proceeding with this final master plan.
Does council have any questions? Raise your hand. Beth.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm trying to figure out this thing about this playful art / fountain that is situated within the wetland stream buffer. I mean.
So the playful art, the fountain and playful art is actually up here. The text is in the stream buffer, but it's pointing to the red asterisk.
Okay, got it.
So
Thanks.
the thought there is basically like a little water fountain or something spurting up from a plaza space.
Okay, thanks. I just thought it was that round thing. Thank you.
No problem. Now that I'm looking at it, I can see where that would come into play.
Thanks, Beth. Christina.
Yeah, just real quick, last time we talked about it, but I just want to make sure we're still planning on having street parking along that sidewalk that it will potentially go in as well, correct?
Yes, so in the interim condition before Wax Road actually gets redeveloped as its full intended build out, you will be able to still park along the side of the street. There's basically kind of a gravel unimproved edge. You will also be able to potentially park in that in what will be the future town center, but is now a nice large open parking lot. So those would be available for the interim condition as Wax Road gets developed and or this park gets developed into future phases. That street frontage will be improved and formalized as on-street parking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Anybody else? All right, turn it back over to you, Juliet.
Thank you. All right, so some next steps. We have an upcoming open house. This open house is going to share the phase 1 improvements and the final master plan with the community. And then we really want to focus on beyond phase 1, what is the priorities for the next phase? And we also are going to have some activities and some opportunities to comment on what types of character and materials people are interested in. So what kind of playground, what kind of playful art, kind of fountains, like what are those different ways we could actually develop those into the park and what feels like the right fit for the character of the community. We'll have a public survey as part of that. So that will remain open for additional feedback citywide and notification through various social medias, e-blasts and email lists similar to past processes. We are at the very end of our master plan phase, going into that public open house. And then from here, we launch into phase 1 design of those initial improvements that we just described. We're going to take a quick pause at the 30% construction documents to really do a deep dive into our cost estimates, make sure we're on track with meeting our budget constraints, decide if there's any additional alternatives or shifting of those alternatives that we need to consider. And then we'll move into 90% and permitting with the goal of going out to bid in the winter of 2022, 2023. So in that next winter season, so that we could start construction in the early spring of 2023. And with that, I will stop sharing and open it back up to any final questions or if Ethan has anything else to add.
Ethan, do you have anything to add before I open it up for questions?
No, I think you did a great job covering that. I'm happy to help with questions though.
Council have any further questions?
No, it just looks great.
Awesome. There is one more thing I forgot to add as part of the presentation. We do have a more detailed estimate that we did provide, or schedule that we did provide. And one of the elements of that is some additional RCO grant funding for what would be phase 2 or the next future phases of the park. So we're in very beginning stages, but see a lot of opportunity to continue to try and build this park out over time. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Juliet. Council, before us is a possible action to approve the SoCo Park Master Plan in substantial form as presented. Does council wish to take action?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Beth to approve the SoCo Park Master Plan in substantial form as presented. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm really excited about this park. We've been talking about it for years. I remember taking a tour of the property when I was on pre-pack, which was a really long time ago. That was, yeah. So seeing it start to come to fruition is really exciting. And I think it's in a fantastic spot for our families and future families living in that downtown core area. So thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Beth, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, I haven't been involved nearly as long, but definitely I'm excited to see some kind of park, particularly for the folks that are going to be living in the downtown area or that already do live in the downtown area, and having a walkable access to nature, to interaction and community events. I think will be of great service to the community in that area.
Thank you, Beth. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Seeing nobody raise their hand, it has been moved and seconded to approve the SoCo Park Master Plan in substantial form as presented. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It is unanimous to approve the SoCo Park Master Plan. Thank you all very much. Juliet and Merritt, thank you very much for being here tonight to present that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is presentation of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. Ethan.
Hi again, Council. Tonight we have our consultant Tom Beckwith with us, who's been helping the city in developing an updated Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. This is often referred to as a PROS plan and serves as a long-range planning document. It should support parks, recreation, and open space items that the city does and may do, but does not necessarily obligate the city to those items. Tonight, Tom will be giving the first of 2 presentations to the council. He will return in a month to give the second and final presentation, after which the plan will need to be adopted by the city council in order to remain eligible for state grant funds, which is a bit of a schedule that we're tied to that helps us fund a lot of our park projects. So with that, I will turn it over to Tom. And turn it over to you.
Great. I'm going to pull this up. I thought, try that again. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. We're gonna, down on the bottom left-hand corner, one of my consultant team members is Ferdouse Oneza, and at the last minute, she couldn't make it tonight. So I'll do all the presentations. The first key is your Covington population projections. We're looking at 35,000 by 2050. And the bottom graphic shows what we think the age specific numbers will be between 2010 and 2050. And 2010 is blue, 2050 is red. You can see you still remain a middle family community with children under the ages of 19, but you can also see that your older age groups from 64 to 85 grow proportionally. This is a little bit different than what we're seeing nationally in the fact that you remain a family-oriented community predominantly. We projected your activity volumes based on those age-specific trends. Blue is 2020 age-specific, and the red is 2050. I put arrows to indicate where the major volumes will be. Swimming indoors in a pool, weight conditioning, aerobics, playgrounds, bike riding on streets or roads, hiking, walking in a park, walking with a pet in a park, and observing wildlife. If you can see, the longest bars there are observing wildlife, playground facilities, and walking. So if you're looking at what kinds of activities have the greatest benefit, at least to the greatest percent of the population, those are the activities to focus on. That doesn't mean that other activities aren't important, but they're not as large, at least in volume, as the ones I just indicated. This is an inventory of your existing parks. They're shown in dark green. You have 12 parks, although some of them are called open spaces. There are 2 that are on your borders with Kent, and there are 2 that are on your borders with King County. You can see the distribution, at least, of public parks. These are your existing schools. It includes 8 from Kent and 1 from the Tahoma School District on the upper north, where your aquatic facility is. These are your existing HOA parks, not open spaces. We call these parks because they have some park feature in it. That may be a playground, or maybe a basketball court, or maybe a picnic table. Most of them are really small. We call them mini parks, and that they only have one of those activities, either a basketball court or a picnic table or a playground. But you can see the distribution. They're primarily in the newly developed homeowner associations type developments. This is the walkability. This is a 5-minute walk from an existing public or HOA park or school. So all the yellow is within 5 minutes of some type of recreational facility. The areas in white do not have services, and you can see that there's a concentration in here in the kind of the older original portions of the city, and you can see that it's up by Lake Point. There's some gaps too. So one of the objectives of the plan is to fill in those gaps, at least, to where everybody at least has the opportunity to be able to walk to a local park of some form. These are the citywide plan elements. This is where we look at citywide strategy. So the first is a conservation strategy. We want to consolidate all your parks, open spaces, and HO parks to create kind of an open space corridor through the city. We want to conserve riparian habitat and vegetation along your primary creek corridors, including Big Sioux, Little Sioux, Jenkins, North Stream, Jenkins, and Cranmar creeks. We want to include private properties that are already conserving habitat. That doesn't mean we want to take ownerships. We just want to tie them into a conservation strategy overall. And we want to remove invasive species and plant native vegetation, stock the creeks, and install interpretive signage as much as possible. This is what those corridors would look like. You can see the green corridors extend along those key creeks, and they do tie in some of the major open space and park facilities that you have. We've only emphasized those which are within the city limits, but we'd like to see a coordinated approach with the county that would extend those in and outside your areas. The picnicking strategy is to conserve natural features where we put picnicking activities, put them where they provide access to that, provide them within 5-minute walk, and locations suitable for gatherings. The light green circles are existing facilities. The bright yellow circles are where we're proposing to add them. So you can see we're proposing to add them to Echo Park and to SoCo Park. That will give us a better distribution, at least throughout the city, not considering the HOAs, which are also a part of the kind of your background inventory, but it will give you a public distribution system that's close to the 5-minute. Our off-road trail strategy is to connect open spaces with destinations, including schools, parks, and commercial activities. Design these depending on environmental constraints, neighboring property impacts, and who would be the likely users. We're looking for recreational off-road users in this case. To utilize HOA open spaces and trails where feasible and desirable, depending on whether the HOAs are comfortable and agreeable to that, and installing wayfinding signage and directories so that there's a citywide network and that it's understood and manageable. This is what it would look like. The orange, solid orange is what exists, and the hatched orange is what we would propose to add. You can see we want to create networks and loops throughout the city that tie into their major systems like Little Sioux Creek and Cedar Creek Park and your community park, but also they get to most of the schools and then get to all of the other destinations that are significant throughout the city. Your on-road bike lanes is to supplement that, fill in the gaps between the off-road trails and parks, design them for family-oriented safety measures and multi-use standards, resolve the safety conflicts where you're having conflicts with vehicles and other activities, and install wayfinding signage. The blue, solid blue, are existing on-road lanes, and the hatch lines are where we want to add to the system. We've overlaid that on the off-road trails. You can see now we've got a pretty effective, cohesive strategy of on and off-road trail access. Our playground strategy is the same as picnics, within 5-minute walking, age appropriate, work with the school district and HOAs to increase public access. You need to upgrade some of the existing playgrounds to meet ADA, and we want to promote the universal playground feature you have at Covington Community Park. That's really a trendsetter, and that's something we'd like to see expanded throughout the system. This is what exists, the light green, and what we're proposing are the yellow circles. We're proposing a Jenkins Creek at Echo Park. And in this case, we said a playground south, but actually, based on the master plan you just approved, that playground would be in SoCo Park, and that's great. That's a good distribution and a good site for that. The sports court, we call them sports courts, which are a combination of basketball, pickleball, volleyball. And that's the way we design them now. We don't design them as single use. We want those within the 5-minute walking distance. We want to work with the school district to increase public access to their facilities as much as possible. And we need to upgrade some existing courts for surface and life cycle and safety concerns. This is the distribution again. The light green, there are more of them now that we can include schools and some HOA. And we're also looking at proposals at Echo Park, if that can work out, and some parks south, because the sport court is probably not compatible with what you've looked at for SoCo Park. The soccer field strategy should differentiate between competitive game requirements and practice needs, particularly for younger age players. so that they can practice and in some cases play maybe on elementary school fields rather than using your most competitive adult fields. Reserve the fields with the school districts and establish some standardized and equitable field availabilities between the leagues, between the ages, between the games, and between the practices. And upgrade some existing grass fields for turf and lighting to increase capacity and create the multi-use capabilities. You have enough real estate and fields. You'll be adding some more soccer fields at Community Park. We might recommend you consider adding ball fields into what we call rectangular fields to make them more effective and more functional. The baseball, softball strategy is the same as soccer, particularly differentiating between practice and games and between ages and creating standardized field availabilities and upgrading for some turf. Again, you have enough real estate, and the question is to make them as accessible as possible. Indoor facility strategy is to develop multi-generational so that we don't have dedicated age-specific facilities. Design them to be flexible because we're finding that the activities and interests vary over time. To work with the school districts to make their facilities accessible as much as possible. And of course, to develop your regional aquatics recreation center as you can. The yellow circles 8A and 8B were some of the sites that were recommended in that aquatics feasibility study that would be within Covington. And then I think there's one more over in Maple Valley. Now we're going to look at how these things affect specific parks. So in Covington Community Parks, you can see the existing improvements that are listed there, and the potential improvements at the bottom right would be to determine the future of your community aquatic center. Take a look at those possible sites. Some things we would install in your existing facility are security cameras and some wayfinding signage. In Covington Community Park, it would really be to implement phase 3, which would create the new multi-use soccer fields in the right-hand corner, some water features, a basketball court, volleyball court, some other kind of plaza activities that make that a more intensive use area within the corner. At Crystal View Park in light green is the acquisition that you're being funded under your conservation futures. What we're proposing here is to finish the acquisition of that, demolish the existing residential structure, extend the trails into that site, which are allowable under the conservation futures funding, put some educational signing, and then in the existing park, upgrade the playground and sports court to be better surfaces and ADA accessible. Within Echo Park is to develop a master plan for that park to see exactly what you can and can't use or is functional for that site. And as much as possible in the future, begin to plan, as you can see in the trails concept, which potentially maybe at some long point in the future is extend this up north to where you begin to connect with Cedar Creek Park. For Evergreen Park, it's basically to improve the trail that semi-exists through the site and install wayfinding signage and a trail directory. In Friendship Park, it's a nice design and planned park, but it's to upgrade the picnic shelter, put in irrigation, put in a drinking fountain, security camera, and signage. And the Gary Creek Skate Park, the potential improvements are the security camera, install the wayfinding signage, and personally make sure that that mural stays in good shape. We really like that feature. In Jenkins Creek Park, it's to implement what's in the master plan. And that would include the parking lot and then the improvements that you just purchased on this side of the park, restore the natural areas and shoreline, and put in security cameras and signage. In Jenkins Creek Trail, is to develop planned improvements as part of a city trail master plan. We need to emphasize that when we're showing the off and on-road trail concepts, those are concepts. You need to move to the next stage, which begins to specify what each segment would be, what is design and use standards would be in order in which to implement that. And that would definitely affect the potential connection between Jenkins Creek Park and the trail, and then heading north towards Lake Point. We're near Vista Park has developed a master plan for the site. You can see that there's some light green cells in there. Those are your stormwater ponds. There's some light blue. Those are HOA parks. Develop an overall, tie this trail into your overall Trail City Master Plan and put in some signage and exhibits. And SoCo Park is to implement what you just approved as your master plan. For Wingfield Open Space, it's develop a master plan for this property and site that not only improves and relates this property to what you see in the blue, which are the HOA parks on number 3, and the trail that goes to the high school on number 1. Put in some native plant material and potentially retrofit this concrete basin storm drainage into a bioswale as a demonstration project of what you potentially could pursue and implement through the rest of the city. We did 2 surveys. This is their priority survey where we showed these concepts and asked the people to complete a survey to give us some of the priorities. 234 people completed the survey. 18% say they live outside the city limit because we recruited most of the people in this survey using the U.S. Postal Service Every Door Direct Mail. This shows the postal routes which were restricted to use for those delivery options. In some cases, they extend slightly out, and in some cases, even slightly inside city limits. One thing we found when we do these surveys, though, is people really aren't aware of where city limits are. So they may say they live in or out, and in some cases, they're not relatively accurate. And you'll see that a little bit later. Where do you work? 18% were retired that completed the survey, and 11%, at least at this time, with the COVID pandemic, 11% were not working. Are you a registered voter of the city of Covington? And you see here 75% now said they are registered. When we asked how far they were from a public park, 31% said they were 15 plus minutes walking distance. And you can see that reflects the white gaps that I showed you in that walkability map. When we asked them to weight then characteristics, we did a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 was the lowest quality and 5 was the highest quality. And the thing that most of your respondents liked was the quality. They gave it a 3.13, and that's a above average rating. And all of your location and quantity at least came close to average. When we asked what were the priorities for generic development, the highest rated priorities were playgrounds, swimming pools, and splash pads, and conservancies along the creek corridors. But almost all of those, except maybe meeting rooms, had at least average or above average priorities. When then we went to the specific proposals that I showed you in the citywide concepts, we asked them each one, showed them the graphic and asked each one in turn to rate a priority. The conservancies, creek corridors had a high to highest priority. The picnic shelters and tables had a high priority. The off-road trail network had a high to highest priority. The on-lane bike lanes and sidewalks had a high priority. The playgrounds had a high to highest priority. The sport courts had a moderate to high priority. The multi-use fields had a moderate priority. The regional aquatic center had a high to highest, but we also asked about a community center that would have meeting room facilities, would not duplicate the recreation center, but would provide things that were not in that proposed concept. And it also had a high to priority. Then we asked about finances, and we said there were different ways that you could fund some of these things. Not everything could potentially be funded through your sales and use taxes. And we gave 3 options: approve a limited duration levy, typically 7 years, approve a bond, which can only be used for construction, versus a levy, which can be used for maintenance and operating costs, and then approve resetting the property tax rate with an increase dedicated exclusively to parks. And you can see the limited duration levy for 7 years had a high to highest priority. So one option is to use a reoccurring levy. Every 6 to 7 years, you go out with a new levy with new project priorities in it, and ask your voters to approve that based on what the projects that they're likely to get. Now, for example, Bellingham has been doing that on their greenways, and they're at least, I think they're up to their 4th reoccurring levy. Seattle has been using that on their housing homeless house on all affordable housing projects, and I think they're on their third or so reoccurring levy. So this type of levy only takes a 50+1 approval rating and no minimum turnout. If you replace a bond and we are a limited duration levy, that's what they would be willing to pay per year. 50% would pay less than $100 and 50% would pay more than $100. So $100 seemed to be the break-even point. We asked also then about recreational programs. Which ones do you think should be offered by age group? The highest priorities were for teens, and then elementary school, and then for families, but you can see all of those were above average. We asked where they should be offered in Covington. What were the most important interest areas? They were outdoor recreation and community events, but all of them had moderate or higher priorities. Then we asked specifically about this too, saying that you can't recover all the costs. So what were some of the methods for offsetting the costs that were not covered? The highest priority, of course, was getting somebody else to pay for it, looking for other sponsors, but also selectively increasing user fees to finance some program services. The one that did not get a lot of support was increasing property taxes to finance program cost shortfalls. So this is where we are tonight with the first presentation of this plan, and we will be back. I think it's not on the 22nd now. Ethan, is it 26th? To talk about implementation.
Yeah, we bumped it one meeting ahead, so I think it'll be like April 12th or the first meeting in April is when we'll have you back.
Were there any questions on the contents of the PowerPoint before I close that out?
Does the council have any questions for Tom? I don't see. Oh, Beth.
Hi, thank you, Tom. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. Just a quick question. Were there any other studies done if we increased from 5 minutes walk to like 7 minutes or 10? Has any of those studies ever been done in other cities, or is that sort of the benchmark?
That's kind of the benchmark. Sometimes we do a 5 and 10, but generally the best goal is the 5 minute. Now, what we did when we tracked, you saw the yellow areas there, is we track actual routes. We didn't use circles. So in some cases, if there are barriers to that, that can affect your walkability, particularly if you have a real congested street or you have a physical barrier. But generally, the 5 minute is kind of the gold standard if we can achieve it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else have any questions for Tom?
I might say that's a 5 minute like my wife walks, very slowly. It's not a power walk. We're not trying to do power walk 5 minutes.
I don't see anybody else raising their hand, Tom. So thank you very much for a very, very good presentation. That's greatly appreciated. Ethan, is there anything else you'd like from council tonight?
No, we were just wanting to break up the presentation because it's a lot of information. We'll bring back part 2 in about a month.
Great. Thank you, Ethan. And Tom, thank you very much again for a great presentation. Very in-depth, so we really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
We'll see you back soon.
Okay.
Next up is review of the 2022 Summit Action Items List. Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So what you have before you is a list of all the action items that came out of the Council Summit that we held in January. We pulled each action item that the Council decided on and wanted staff and Council to work on. And so this is the tracking sheet we create each year after the summit. And this is really kind of for your information. Here it is. I'll bring it back to you mid-year. And then of course, at the end of the year, you can see it's divided by the action item and then the person or persons responsible for that action item. And so I know I don't need to read through it all. You've seen it, but I'm just here if you have any questions on it. Otherwise, we will move forward and start getting to work on these.
Thanks, Regan. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Regan. Yeah, I appreciate you putting these down on paper. It's good to see them. And I think we've got a pretty ambitious list of actions to complete this year. So I also appreciate the plan to come back mid-year. I would suggest actually reporting quarterly, maybe just because some of these are pretty heavy lifts. And if we wait to half year and let's say we're behind, not that we're going to be, but let's just say hypothetically we've lost half a year. So I would recommend, if it's possible, come back quarterly so that we can make any corrections or changes that we need to.
Yeah, if council wants that, that's no problem. I could either email this out because we'll start typing in the updates of what's happening. So I can either email that out quarterly or just bring it back to a council meeting every few months.
What does council prefer? They prefer a quarterly email update, or would you prefer just hearing back semi-annually every 6 months? Well, in 6 months, the update. What would council prefer?
I like
Thumbs
the
up.
idea of quarterly. It just gives us more information.
So quarterly email or quarterly in person, Joe?
I'm good with an email. Not that I don't want to hear from you, Regan. It's just an email.
We can even do both. So whatever you want.
That's what I would do.
I can read an email and remember that stuff a little bit more.
Jennifer?
I would prefer in person.
Okay. So thumbs up for in-person quarterly. Okay. Beth, did you have something else?
I was just going to say some
Okay.
in person. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So quarterly in person, Regan?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you. Does council have any other questions on this? Regan, thank you very much to you and the team for putting this together, and we look forward to the updates and the completion of the tasks. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So do we. Like Sean said, it is ambitious, but we're ready to go. So.
Thank you. It brings us into new business item number 5. Consider an ordinance amending Covington Municipal Code 2.80.020 to establish Juneteenth as a possible legal holiday for the city of Covington. Turn that over to Regan and Mark.
Thank you again, council and mayor. I know you all know about Juneteenth and what it is. Last year, it became a recognized federal holiday. And in June of this year, it will be a recognized state holiday and in the state of Washington. The holiday commemorates the day of June 19th, 1865, when enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, were informed that they had been freed and the Civil War was over. And so pursuant to RCW, the council has the authority to adopt these holidays or not. That obviously it's a state and federal holiday, but whether it's recognized officially in Covington as a council decision. A lot of other cities I reached out to have already done it or are considering it, especially some of our neighbors like Kent and Maple Valley. They've already adopted it, and several others. Really what this means, it's already a holiday. What it means is, do we close City Hall on that day? And then we could maybe start incorporating some kind of commemoration of that also in the community. So that's what's before you tonight. And Mark and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Beth.
Yeah, thank you. So was there any input solicited from the Diversity, Equity, and Social Justice Commission?
So input on whether to do this or not. This was something we had actually in our back pocket to bring forward next year or last year, sorry, but wanted to wait until the state was making an official holiday. I have informed the commission. I just checked. It didn't look like any were here tonight, but I invited them to come here. They are supportive of it. And I've also asked them if this is something the council adopts, or if not even, to work on something this year to commemorate it. Maybe it's a social media campaign or something of that nature.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Joe?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Joe and seconded by Sean to approve the proposed resolution establishing Juneteenth as a legal holiday for the city. Joe, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, this is basically us codifying what the state and the nation have done, which gives us more ability to do fun things on Juneteenth in Covington. We can do, I mean, I'm not one for parades, but we could hold the parade. We could do some other things and give ourselves a reason to celebrate. It will close down City Hall, I'm sure, for a day, but it gives us a reason to understand why. So.
Thank you, Joe. Sean, would you like to speak to your second?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Regan, thanks to you and staff for bringing this forward. As you mentioned, it's not going to financially impact the city at all, but it is a great way of commemorating and recognizing and commemorating this important date in our history. So yeah, I think it's a great, and I like the idea of looking in the future for the Equity Commission to find ways for us to recognize and celebrate that day. So speaker series or some type of public event, I think that'd be outstanding. So I'm all for this.
Thanks, Sean. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? All right, seeing nobody raise their hand, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed resolution establishing Juneteenth as a legal holiday for the city. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It is unanimous to approve the proposed resolution establishing Juneteenth as a legal holiday for this city. Thank you all very much for that. Next is new business item number 6, discussion of House Bill 1590 funds and South King Housing and Homelessness Partners. Regan.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is kind of an ongoing discussion that we're bringing back to council for a little bit of clarification. As you know, we're receiving these funds from the that were authorized by the state. We currently have collected about just over $709,000. We anticipate this year to collect about $648,000. The law allows us to allocate or at least 60% of these funds towards construction for affordable housing. At our budget workshop in 2020, so a year and a half ago, the council decided to allocate 50% of that 60% of funds to SKIP for construction of affordable housing. In the interim, so a few months later, in April 14th, 2021, we passed a resolution that's required to determine how we're going to spend these funds. And in one of the recitals of that resolution, we indicated or memorialized what the council had stated about the 50% going to SKIP. Since that time, it's my understanding, and Joe could confirm this, that SKIP does not have any current or projected projects they're working on. And we discussed this at our summit this year, and Beth reminded us of this council stated allocation. So what we're looking for is clarification on if the council wants that 50% still, and if you do, is that a one-time allocation? Do you want that continually each year to go to SKIP, or do you want to hold those funds in reserve and allocate them to SKIP as they have project ready or are in need of it? One thing to keep in mind is that last paragraph in the blue sheet, that if SKIP locked in financing based on documents executed by SKIP on behalf of the city, then the city may be obligated to continue providing funding even if the city wanted to withdraw as a member of SKIP. And that's because they can receive these funds and bond for them, and so they need that continual payment coming in for that specific project. So at this point, we're just looking for a council decision or to clarify if you'd still like those funds fit that percentage amount to go to SKIP, and if you do, is that a one-time thing? Is it each year, or do you want to continue to hold those in reserve until you see something further as far as a plan for these projects.
For council, do they have any Jennifer?
Immediately. And maybe Joe, you can answer this. If we choose to keep them in reserve, does that put Skip in any kind of precarious situation? If we just feel like it's best to be cautious and say, yeah, we're probably going to give these to you, but we're not totally sure, or do they need a commitment of the specific dollar amount in order to move forward?
You want to take that, Regan, or me?
Well, I'm happy to address it. It's whatever you want.
So I'll state this. Skip is still working under the concept that only $1,406 are coming their way. They're not working with the $1,590 as a thought process. Even though every time we discuss money, I remind them that we're giving them $1,590, which is more than $1,406. They just want to know how much we're giving them besides out of those funds, out instead of the 1406, because they know we're not giving them the 1406 funds. I get dirty looks every once in a while about that. But the 1590 funds, as long as we can tell them that, we're expecting X amount to be going to you, they'll be fine. I do have a meeting with them. We do have a skip meeting on Friday, so I can double check that with them. Or I can contact Angela tomorrow and get back and send an email to Regan and let Regan send it out to all of us. But in reality, Skip just wants a number of what we're giving them, because we always know it's going to be an estimate since it's a sales tax thing, and that just kind of ebbs and flows. So they just would like a number, and to make sure we can tell them that we're holding on to it for a couple months longer than normal. But yeah.
If I could just add on to that, I think Skip will take whatever money the partner cities are willing to give. And so it's really just a question for the council of, are you ready to commit to give those funds to Skip, or do you want to hold them in reserve until you see what maybe projects might come up that these might pay for, right? We know the goal for Skip is to provide affordable housing. They just haven't been able to get to that point quite yet.
Sean, then Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, so we have $750,000 in this account, and we're still waiting for Skip. So let's say we don't give the money to them right now. We're assuming that we will at some point. I mean, what's the difference if we hold it or they hold it? And then I have another question after that.
Yeah, it's a good question. So if you give it now, obviously you're committing it to Skip. There are other agencies that the city could choose to fund if the money's held in reserve in the city. If you give it, then obviously you wouldn't be able to fund those other agencies.
Okay, I appreciate that. That was my next question is, if we don't give to Skip, who are we giving to? And would that building of affordable housing move more quickly than Skip? Would it be, more affordable housing? Would it be in Covington? So
yeah,
questions.
I'll answer your last question first. I doubt it'll be in Covington. But the other entity, if you recall, there was a little bit of a controversy when these this funding source was taking effect, because how the statute was adopted is that the money went to King County unless the city adopted it first. And it was for the King County affordable housing program that they're doing. So several cities, including us, obviously, we decided to take those funds first so that we could be in the driver's seat of where we allocated them. That being said, King County would love it if we put our funds in with their construction dollars as well. I do believe they're probably moving a little quicker on developing affordable housing than Skip. It's just a matter of where the council would want to allocate those funds.
Thank you.
Christina, and then Beth.
Yeah, thank you. I have the same questions about Skip as Sean asked, but and it's not that I don't want Skip to succeed. I don't not want Skip to have a plan in place to erect something that we can contribute to. I would love to do that. But when asked the question, are you really ready to commit a certain amount of time or a certain 50% or however much we decide, with the possibility that locked in financing will obligate us to pay that? No, I'm not. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't. We can, being in the driver's seat, we can always, and I don't see why we cannot come to an agreement with Skip, say, on a case by case. Like if they have a project, amazing. Bring it to us. Give us an idea. It only takes one council meeting. I think that would be a fair position to take, but with what Regan said, even other entities moving a little faster, it's worth exploring and just leaving the options open for us. That's how I feel. I do want Skip to be successful. Please hear me correctly. I want something to happen, but I don't want to keep contributing money to something that's just not happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Beth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I do have a couple of questions. Remind me again, is there a time limit from when these House bill funds have to be spent if we decide to hold them in reserve until a project, whether it's Skip or wherever, comes up that we think would benefit our residents of Covington?
I don't think so, but Casey, can you confirm that? Casey?
You're on mute, Casey.
Mark, do you have the answer to that?
Yeah, there's no time frame that they need to be spent with them.
Okay.
So they can just be held in city reserve until a project selected or something like that.
Sure. And then an example, I remember when we were trying to decide on reducing impact fees for the station by Vintage when they were going to put affordable housing units in. And if there's a project that comes up like that, similarly, would we be, it sounds like as I'm reading this, that can be used for constructing affordable housing. Doesn't necessarily mean the whole building has to be affordable housing, but if a portion of it or a wing or something like that, would we be able to do that so we could keep affordable housing units within Covington city limits without, it seems like that would be an option possibly.
So if a private developer wants to develop housing and we give them an incentive with some House Bill 1590 funds and say develop a certain amount of affordable housing, I believe that is something we could do. Mark, do you know for sure?
It's hard to say whether that individually would be allowed. By off the cuff, if it's going toward the construction of affordable housing, it should be, but we'd evaluate each and every situation based upon the statute and the policy that council adopted to make sure that it was going to fly with the RCWs.
Okay, well, I like the idea of us holding it in reserve, much to Christina's point, and I think other people have brought it up, that it's not about not wanting to support Skip. It's about waiting to see what options are going to be available and how much money then we could portion out to different projects with some tie-ins to what we would be receiving on our end, how that would look serving residents of Covington, or yeah, you know, we have folks that might need, that we know are living on the streets, even at the bus stops and so forth, and how we could get them into facilities, even if it's not within city limits, if it's something that Skip put together. So I would be for holding it in reserve. And then when Skip has a plan, we can find out how much we would be able to give, either if it's a one-time thing or part of that every year. I feel like we don't have enough information right now to make a commitment.
Thank you, Beth. Jennifer?
I guess I still am not clear with, because it seems to me we need to commit to a dollar amount in order for Skip to make any plans for any projects. And while I am hesitant to commit without a known plan, I also recall the reason we invested or committed to invest in Skip is because of that South King County presence. It's a coalition of us, of cities like us that are outside of Seattle. And so when I hear King County, not that King County's bad, but when I hear that as like, oh, well, we could give the money to King County, it's like, but then the money's drifting north, way, way, way north. And so I am a little concerned that I just don't want us losing sight of the reason Skip was founded and what its goal is, and that $700,000 is nothing when it comes to affordable housing. For us, yes, a lot of money. I agree. Any taxpayers listening on the phone, I'm not taking for granted how much money that is. But when you're talking about building something, it's a heck of a lot more than 700,000. And it's going to take many, many, many years for us to make a dent, which is again why we were thinking of Skip. So I can't say that I have some firm decision after saying all of these things, but I do want to remind council just why Skip was selected for these funds to begin with, so we don't forget and then lose the money up north when we didn't want to in the first place.
Thanks, Jennifer. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to Jennifer's point, what I'm being the Skip representative, I will reach out to Angela tomorrow, double check that with her, make sure that we can, if she would like us to give a dollar amount or what her plan would be for us. And worst case, I bring it back up with the Skip board on Friday. No, it's next Friday. Sorry, it's not this Friday. But I will definitely have an answer for council before our next meeting. If I don't hear from Angela by the end of the week, I'll definitely make sure to reach out to her again. But I will reach out to Angela, get a definitive answer, share it with Regan so Regan can share it with the rest of us. But I think the way we've been working with Skip is that they're just counting the money that they're working with at the moment is our dues, really, until they even come up with a project. Skip has no projects lined up at this moment. To my knowledge, we're not even looking at a project for right now. So I will verify all of that though and have something for you guys, hopefully by the end of the week, if not by our next council meeting.
And Joe, has Skip even asked the partner cities for the 1590 funds yet? And I don't know if the other partner cities have allocated these
So
funds
the
to
only,
them.
and if memory serves me right, the only partner cities that took the 1590 funds before King County acted was us and Kent.
Yeah, that's true. The other cities, they're not even collecting this.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but I will verify with, like I said, I'll verify with Angela, but they haven't asked for the 1590 funds from us or Kent. And I don't know what Kent's doing with their 1590 funds, so.
All right, any other questions on this? Regan, do you need anything else from us?
Well, I don't know what the next step is yet. So what I'm hearing is a couple people have said, let's hold it in reserve. And then Joe's going to reach out to see if they want money. So are you wanting this on another agenda, or do you want to make a decision tonight, hold it to reserve, and then when Skip needs these funds, the council can make a decision then?
Christina?
Personally, I would like to hear what Skip has to say in response to Joe's questions. I would urge you, Joe, to ask them if there is something fermenting in the future. Do they see a light at the end of the tunnel? Maybe they don't have anything currently, but maybe something is being discussed. Is there hope? just so we can have a clear outlook on this. I would really appreciate that. And then to bring it to the next or another council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Beth?
I would agree with what Christina just said. I think it's helpful to have a little more information, find out where they're at in that process and what kind of a commitment they would want from us and when.
Thanks, Beth. Anybody else? Personally, I would like to hold the funds since only 2 cities are collecting the 1590 funds, Kent and us. I have no problem waiting to get more information back, Joe, but I feel holding the funds until a future date. And if when Skip comes up with projects that they want and they are looking for the extra 1590 funds that Kent and Covington can provide, then I'm all for moving forward at that time. But does council want to wait until they hear back from what Joe finds out from Skip, or do they want to just put the funds and hold on to them until Skip asks for them?
I'm gonna say hold them.
Christina?
If I mean, that's my initial thought. So it's easy for me to divert to it. That's what I truly believe. But if we do need more information, then I'm okay with it. But yes, I would be happy to hold the funds.
Okay, so can I get a thumbs up if council wishes to hold the funds until Skip asks for funds at a future date?
Mayor,
One, two.
if it's
Yes,
okay,
Regan.
can we do this by motion?
Yes, so a motion is that the city of Covington would like to hold the House Bill 1590 funds in reserve until at which a future date that Skip or another entity asks for the funds to move forward with those funds. Does that work, Mark?
And maybe I'll just jump in. You could make the motion a little more general, like Beth had a suggestion that might work too, right? So maybe just the motion is simply that the city will hold those in reserve until the time that they allocate them for affordable housing.
Okay, I'll rephrase that. The city would like to hold the House Bill 1590 funds in reserve until a future allocation is needed. Does that work? Beth, did I capture that?
I think that probably is, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Does that work, Mark?
Yes, that works.
Okay, I'd look for a motion to approve that.
So moved. Second.
So I heard Joe move, and was Jennifer seconding?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved by Joe and seconded by Jennifer to hold the House Bill 1590 funds in reserve until a future allocation is needed. Call for roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, so it's unanimous to hold the House Bill 1590 funds for a future date in reserve. Thank you. Does that help, Regan?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is new business item number 7. Consider awarding the construction contract for SR 516 Jenkins Creek to 185th Place Southeast Project, CIP 1127 to the lowest responsible bidder. Turn this over to Regan and Dawn.
I think I'm going to start off and then I'll pass it over to Regan. So the last council meeting, we talked about the project and the bids that came in and them coming in high, and that we were going to delay that to see if there was additional funds coming from the legislature. I'll let Regan talk about that. The one aspect that I want to bring up is particularly in the fiscal impact. Obviously, as it sits right now, the way the blue sheet's set up in the fiscal impact, we're short about $5 million to fund the project. And we show the breakdown in the revenue side and the expenditure side. I just wanted to point out also that we have about a 5% contingency set up in the expenditures, about 800,000. So just keep in mind, we're hoping that we can keep that within that contingency with a project this large and the complexity of it. That could be challenging, but knowing the funding and that type of thing, and we're going to do our due diligence to keep that closely monitored. But I at least wanted to bring that up the way that it sits right now, that if we bridge that 5 million gap and council does decide to award the project based on that, there is a 5% contingency set in that as it's set out right now. So with that, that's kind of the pieces on the actual project. And then funding wise, I'll kick it to you, Regan.
Thanks, Don. So as we've indicated, we were able to get the House to include $5 million in the House transportation side and the transportation package. The negotiations that have been taking place between the Senate and the House this last week have been all behind closed doors. We don't know where it's at right now. In 2 days, we'll probably know where that shakes out, but we know it went into negotiations, at least in one of the packages. So one of the things council asked is, with that hanging out there, what are some other funding options that we have? So we included in the blue sheet, we combed through our budget and included each different item where we could pull funds from to help fill this funding gap. So we can go through those quickly. And what we'd like to do is prioritize, have the council prioritize which fund they'd like us to take these from if the project's something you approve and want to go forward with. So for example, you can see on that page, it's attachment 4 to this blue sheet. The Town Center Reserve has 1.7 million in it. And then you see notes by several of them, and that's the remaining balance after the SoCo Park properties are purchased. We've got the Aquatics Reserve for 1.7 million, a Park Reserve with 350,000. To just keep a note under, let's see, which note is that? Note 2, that project was approved in this year's budget, but it's not been purchased yet. We've got the Vehicle Reserve Fund. We could cancel the purchase at this point of those 2 properties for SoCo Park, and that would give us another 1.3 million. Another thing that's important to note there is there's a good probability that we can be reimbursed for those funds that we've been able to secure in the past for park funding, but that is still an option. We have the remaining 960,000 from our first allocation of ARPA funds. We also have our second round of ARPA funds that are supposed to be coming this year. It's been kind of crickets. We've not heard much about it this year, whether they're coming or not. Last year, we were told it would be coming. So in anticipation of that 2.9 million coming, that's something the council could allocate towards this project as well. Then of course, traffic mitigation, new maintenance facility reserve fund, and then the debt service. And you'll see some of those would not be good. Some of those accounts would not be good to zero out, but council could use a portion of those. If it would be easier, we could put that sheet up on the screen, if that would be easier while we discuss. Casey, do you want to put that up there? There we go. So any
Can you see that okay?
yes, we got it. Can you widen it a little bit, Casey?
Yep. Maybe. There we go.
There we go. So any thoughts? It looks like Jennifer.
Just a quick question. Vehicle reserve, what is that?
So that's a
tab.
sorry.
What is it designated for?
That's just designated to replace vehicles as they come up for replacement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, understood now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Beth.
Yes, a question. Have we ever entered into a contract where we did not immediately have the full funding? Because this 19 million or 18 million is going to be paid out, not all at once. So, correct. And
Yeah.
how long would we have to maybe look at, like maybe in 2023, if we have some additional funding sources that free up to finance the
Mhm.
back end of the project?
I think the best answer to that question would probably be it wouldn't be a wise decision to award a contract that we don't know that we have the funding in place for, unless we split the project up into phases and we can fully fund one phase and we don't have the second phase funded yet. If that's something we wanted to do on this project, that would mean we'd have to rebid it. We'd have to cancel this bid or rebid it.
Okay.
Is that right, Don? I don't want to.
Yes, and then we'd also have to get approval to change the
Shot.
scope and break that into phases. So that would have to go back to DOT and the Fed.
Okay, and then thank you. And then the second question is, where are we at with the Kent and Covington water districts? Are they likely to approve the Schedule B reimbursements?
Yes, I'll speak to. I know that for sure. Covington Water District is. I'm pretty sure both of them did already. I just can't remember about Kent's. But in any event on those would only be awarded if they agree to do that. Like if they're not, say Covington Water, or I mean I should say Kent says no, then then we wouldn't award that schedule in the contract.
Okay, so then we could just not do that schedule and it wouldn't impact the project.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Sean?
Thanks. Well, hopefully the money comes. But I guess if I had to start allocating, I would take the ARPA funds and move those over. So what is that? That's almost 3.8 million right there. Yeah. So then we need another 1.2. So, and the largest ones we have, I guess I would take some from the town center and the aquatic center.
So as we talk about priority, obviously the state appropriation would be the top priority with the funding we'd use. And then second priority would be ARPA. And then third would be town center and aquatic, a percentage from each.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing.
Jennifer?
And that matches my notes exactly. I actually had ARPA and then 400K from aquatic, town, and debt service reserve. But I could easily go 600K from each of those from the town center and aquatic. What if we don't get the ARPA funds though? I mean, that's a huge chunk, and I feel like I'm taking a gamble with my little list here.
There's no indication we're not going to get it at this point, right? We just haven't heard anything about the second allotment yet or allocation yet of when it would be coming. Is it anticipated, Casey, like a June-ish? When's it anticipated?
Yeah, that's when we received last time, was in June. Just while I'm talking, I just wanted to say just one quick thing about the first round of ARPA funds, that $960,000, and then the debt service that Jennifer just mentioned. I will say that those are in our forecast. Let's say general fund is not going to be doing a transfer in 2023 and 2024 because we planned on using those ARPA funds. So that will be an adjustment to the forecast, as well as we we're beginning to spend down those debt reserves because our bonds are getting ready to be paid off in 2027. So those again will also impact the forecast. So just a heads up on those two for future.
Okay, Beth.
Thank you. I would, I mean, I went through and I still am coming up with $2 million short, assuming we don't get ARPA the second round. So I guess that's the thing, is what happens in our worst case scenario if we don't get anything from legislative session and we don't get that round of ARPA. I mean, I'm taking town center down to $1 million, aquatic down to $1 million, and going traffic mitigation down 450,000, like cut that in half, which is the very bottom that we'd want to go. Same thing with debt service. I'm not sure still how we would do it without.
Yeah, if we don't get the state allocation or the second round of ARPA, then it basically would bleed these reserve funds.
Or even if we get part of it, I mean, maybe we don't get the full thing that we're asking for, even if we could get, you know, $2 million out instead of 5 out of the state legislation, at least we'd be able to. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, could we use the ARPA funds if we ended up getting the second round? Could we supplant into town center and aquatic? Probably not, right? Because it needs to be.
We would get this, we'd know by June of this year if we're getting the ARPA, the second round of ARPA funds.
Right, but so say we spent downtown center and aquatic to make the project happen, would we be able to replace some of that with ARPA? I mean, in theory, we would be using some of the ARPA funds then for road work, right? So, I mean, it's kind of a shell game, but we'd be able to put some of that money back into, right?
So
Yeah, I can put it back. I can put it back.
Okay, so if we had to do what we needed to do now to make this happen, ARPA would be able to replenish some of that to a certain extent, right? So, okay.
Yeah,
Can-
if I
can
washed
I-
out town center and aquatic center and wiped them both out, but then I ended up getting ARPA, I can put the reserves back.
So I have a clarifying question. If council approves this awarding of the construction contract, the extra 5 million that we're looking for isn't being paid right away. That is paid out over the course of the construction being completed. It's not paid out up front. So I know that we need to put a plan in place now for that extra 5 million and have it sitting there in reserves as a what if, but we're not needing the money tomorrow to do this project. Is that correct?
We don't need
When
the
will we
money.
start to see bills, Don?
Yeah, we would see, I mean, I would imagine that you're talking about summer before you would probably see the first bill. It would be my right around where we're talking about, we're in March now. If we go in April, they come in May, it'd probably be like June, I would say, somewhere around there would be what I would expect, kind of the first bill.
And so the 5 million that we're short, that portion of the bill, we probably wouldn't see until towards the end of the project that would get paid, because they don't get paid at 100% up front. They would get paid out. So it'd probably be this fall before we'd see that 5 million needed.
Well, there's a couple things, if I can speak to that, in Casey and Mark or anyone can correct me. I mean, we could, these pieces are you know, we have to identify a way to fund this, to have that gap to award the contract. I think that if the funding changes, like if we do get the ARPA or even say there's more mitigation fees that come in the future and that type of thing, I think you can go towards those to utilize those in that sense. because the project's probably going to be, 3 years before the project's done. So there's going to be a time for that to be spread out over that. The grant pieces, though, you're going to, if you've got 10 million or so, roughly, I have to look at the number of what our existing grant funds is. Let me roll back to look at that. Sorry, just 1 second so I can make sense of this, or try to. So if we have around $10 million in construction funds or grant funds existing through the Connecting Washington, and then we get another 5 million, then proportionally that's how you would be drawing these for each reimbursement. So if you've got 18 million, 10 is from Connecting Washington, 5's from the additional state, and we have to come up with 3, then that proportion of that is basically what you would be, each bill would be paying out each time. Does that make sense? I mean, you would, each of that proportion of that is how you would be doing that each time as you go through the contract. Well, actually there's no matching funds. So we would use, I think we could use all of the construction money first, now that I'm thinking out loud here. I don't think there's a match on that. So I take that back. We could be using the $10 million first, if I remember correctly. Casey, do you know?
Because this is a reimbursable grant, I was just going to mention, since this is a reimbursable grant, I'll need these funds for cash flow right at the beginning. So that very first bill, I'm going to have to draw on these funds to pay for it until I get my grant reimbursement funds back. And then once we get rolling, generally we tend to stay pretty lucky and I can keep ahead of it. I don't have to draw more of those funds, but I mean, we obviously will need them since there's a shortfall, but that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is, of these ARPA funds from the first round, have we advertised to businesses and stuff to apply for these funds already that we have sitting there of the 960,000?
You mean for the small business?
The 960.
Yes.
That doesn't include that.
Okay. Thank you.
It's
Christina.
Thank you. One thing that I've seen consistently over the years in Covington is not only our exponential growth, but the projection of sales tax and collections here and collections there. They quite often come in over what we anticipate. I also have seen and know that Covington does an amazing job of saving where we can, and we're very responsible with our money. That doesn't say we make money magically appear, but when given some time, I think the cost of not doing this project is much higher. We've waited for so long to do this. I don't know that we can not do it and commit. And Covington is growing. We know that. We see that regardless of whether we collect on or whether we heighten property taxes or don't, we are growing. And with that, we can't continue to have our roads look the same. It's long overdue. And I just believe, and we see, I mean, we don't want to empty all of our accounts, but there's, emergent money that we can pull from. How much do we have in the reserve currently? Casey, can you answer that?
This is what we have.
These are.
This is the entire reserve, right?
This is the pocket.
Okay, thank you.
The only one that isn't showing on here is a police reserve, but we definitely will be spending that this year. So
yeah, I just don't see the option of not doing this a possibility. Now, can we commit? I guess so. The question is, can we commit to this without putting the funds aside, or no?
I believe we have to have a fail-safe backup if we do not get the extra 5 million. from the transportation package this year. That's what we're looking for right now. Is that correct, Regan?
That's correct.
However, the
Yeah.
ARPA funds, the second round of ARPA funds can be part of that fail-safe?
Yes.
Okay. Then I will say no more.
Thank you, Christina. So right now, what is being suggested, and Sean, correct me if I'm not getting this correctly, you are suggesting that, number one, we use the state legislative $5 million. If we do not get that, then the spending order would be to use both pockets of the ARPA funds, which would be about $3.9 million, and then take the remainder of the 5 million, which would be 1.1, split it in half and take half out of town center and half out of the aquatic center. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Casey, do we need that in a motion?
Let me just throw something out there that, in case you can confirm this, but so that first round of ARPA funds is allocated for certain items in this budget. And so like Casey was saying, it will affect our forecast with the transfers out. The forecast looked better because we had these ARPA funds. If we take those out, it will negatively impact the forecast. So another option is just as the second priority, using the second round of ARPA funds and then taking the rest from town center and aquatics.
Okay, that's understood. And that way it doesn't affect their current budget. Are you fine with that suggestion, Sean?
Just, can you tell me how much that would be then? So 2.9, so we have to take 2 million, so basically
Right.
$1 million from each, so we'd be down to
Right.
700,000, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you need that as a motion, Regan?
Yeah, it would be nice just to see at least
Okay.
on this, just as long as we have some consensus from council on the priority.
Okay, so then the priority would be state appropriation, number one, and then number two would be the second round of ARPA funds and half of that remainder out of town center and aquatic center. So that'd be the number two option, those three combinations. Okay, so the motion would be to take second round, or let me rephrase that. The motion for backup funds, if we do not get state appropriation, would be to take the second round ARPA funds and the remaining difference needed, 50% of it out of town center and 50% out of aquatic center.
Yeah,
Beth?
And then Regan, do we need to say what we're going to do if we don't get that second round of ARPA?
That was exactly what I was going to ask, because if we don't, then we have to figure out that, and we won't know that till June, right? Unless they make an announcement beforehand.
I can put, yeah, I can try to, I sent an email into OFM, but I haven't heard anything back. But I can keep trying and see if the cities that are around us, we have a little email group that I've sent out. Nobody's heard anything yet.
So do we want to move forward with this and then come June, if we haven't heard anything, then reappropriate it so that we can move forward with the granting of this contract tonight? Regan?
You comfortable with that, Casey?
Yes, I think we should be fine. I mean, because I also have the traffic mitigation that we will spend down also, and that gets me to almost 4.4 million. Well, that's if I took the whole town center and the whole aquatic center.
I think we can make that work.
Okay, so I'll restate the
Yeah, I
motion.
think we can make that work. I'm pretty confident.
Anything else, Casey?
No, I'm pretty confident we are going to get those ARPA funds. It's just, I don't have them in my hot little hands quite yet, so.
Okay, so the motion is for the $5 million if we do not get the state appropriation, that we will take the second round of ARPA funds at approximately 2.9 million. The remaining that is needed for the contract, we'll take 50% of that out of town center and 50% out of the aquatic center. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
By Beth and seconded by Joe. Beth, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I think we already talked about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. Joe, would you like to add anything?
Nope.
Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Right, it's been moved and seconded to approve using the second round of ARPA funds and the remaining balance of that split evenly out of the town center and aquatic center. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It is unanimous to use those funding options if we do not get the state appropriation. So that now brings us back to our other motion, is to consider awarding the construction contract for SR 516 Jenkins Creek 2 185th Place Southeast Project CIP 1127 to the lowest responsible bidder, Goodfellow Brothers LLC, in the amount of $18,868,370.53, subject to the Kent Water District Board approving the award of the Schedule B portion of the contract and Covington Water District Board approving the award of Schedule C of the contract. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
It's been moved by Joe and seconded by Jennifer. Joe, would you like to speak to your motion?
We're finally gonna get this road built. Finally. It's not gonna alleviate all of our problems on Kangley, but it's gonna alleviate some, and we have to do this to get the rest of it done. So let's all go get our shovels and start helping them out.
Thanks, Joe. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your second?
Hallelujah. It's finally happening. I am so relieved. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? I just want to say this is a momentous event, and we are moving forward on the first step of taking care of the Covington crawl. It's been moved and seconded to award the construction contract for the SR 516 Jenkins Creek to 185th Place Southeast Project, CIP 1127, to the lowest responsible bidder, Goodfellow Brothers LLC, in the amount of $168,370.53. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote very happy aye. And so it is unanimous to award this construction contract. Thank you all very much for a great discussion. Regan and Don, do you need anything else from us tonight on this topic?
No, thank you.
No, just thank you so much. I appreciate it. We all do.
Looking forward to hearing of the groundbreaking, and I'll make sure I'm there, as I'm sure several of the other council members will as well. All right, that brings us to
when we do it.
That brings us to new business item number 8. Consider options regarding the solid waste contract. I will be recusing myself on that and turning this over to Mayor Pro Tem Smith. And with that, I will leave the meeting, and please let me know when to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. Yeah, I think Jeff's off. Joe, did you have a question already?
No, I just wanted to go ahead and make the motion to move this because there's no other options for us really.
Okay.
So.
Well, okay. Just Regan, do you have anything for us?
I'll let Don kick it off.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Smith and Council. We brought this up a few times, and so we're bringing it back. And the last meeting was to kind of bring back options and kind of keep those options open. And that's kind of what this is. It's kind of 3 pieces, extending the contract, the existing contract 2 years with Republic Services. which would be the time that it would take to potentially get a new vendor in place. At the same time, we could begin negotiations with Republic to have a contract supersede the existing contract. We could also go out at the same time to a RFP process or pursue other options to get a different vendor on board. So that's kind of what this motion is before you, is to have those options. We would also be coming back if the plan would be, as we talk about in the blue sheet about the fiscal impact, is bringing a consultant on board to support that, to have the expertise to go through this and support us through the negotiations and the RFP process. So that would be a separate contract that we would come back with for that consultant. And usually those fees are all rolled into a new contract when that comes into place, and that's what we would plan to do in this case as well. So happy to answer any questions in regards to that.
Thanks, Don. Any questions? Okay. Beth.
Yes. Don, can you just reiterate exactly what that would look like? So if we went into a new contract with Republic or whoever, that $50,000 fee would get rolled into that. I guess I'm trying to figure out where that would go.
So the existing contract that we would extend, the 2-year extension, those fees wouldn't go to that. It would be that whatever the costs would be to renegotiate a contract. So say we began renegotiating with Republic, we go through that process, and council and everyone agrees that yes, this is the way we want to go, and maybe that was $20,000 of the consultant that we needed to go through that process. Then that would be part of the pieces that we would say, hey, Republic, as part of this, we would expect that 20,000 would be part of the new contract or rolled into that cost. Obviously, those would be pieces that could be reflected on rates. So that's the things we'd have to look at to see, does that have an impact on that, to what extent, and if that's the route we want to go. With RFP, the same type of thing would happen. You would go through that and through those negotiations with a new vendor, or even if that's going through the RFP process, and even if that's Republic Services coming back out of that, that would be some of the things that we would put into that RFP. We could mention that is the costs for consultant support would be part of what we would expect to be part of that contract. Does that make sense?
Other questions? All right. Does the council want to take action?
So moved.
I would second it because we don't have any other options at this junction.
So is that it? Are you seconding it?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's been moved by Joe, seconded by Christina. Joe, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yeah, we've already discussed that it's going to take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to go out there and get new bids and contracts. And if we decided that we just didn't want to renew our contract with Republic, we would be 18 to 24 months without trash service in the city of Covington. And we don't need that. So extending the contract for 2 years, we're either negotiating new things into a new contract with Republic during that 2-year period, or getting a new contract seems to be our only real viable option. So I would say that this is a must do for us.
Christina, did you want to speak to your second?
Sure. Last time when we discussed this, one thing that I believe Don or maybe someone else brought up was that if we were to go into negotiations with Republic right now, they would not offer us the price that we currently have, and it would be a guaranteed higher price. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yes, I would hesitate to say guaranteed because I don't know, but yes, most likely it would be an increase, yes.
I'm jumping to big words, or power words, but the chance of us being stuck at a higher contract than the one we have with the same provider is high. Our best option, as far as I see it, while we explore other options, is to renew this contract and then do our diligent work and find other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak for or against? Yeah, Beth.
Mayor Pro Tem, I would agree with Christina. I know that it might be really hard for some people to hear right now, but just because of what recently happened. I also had heard about other stories from other waste companies too. So it sounds like we're never going to be without any kind of an incident. And until we have an opportunity to fully explore, this will give us the time that we need to do it. And I think it's important that we continue to look at other options and figure out what else we can do for our residents. But in the meantime, this will buy us some time.
Thank you, Beth. Anyone else? So I would agree. And I just want to say thank you to the city staff for the last several months, continuing to work with Republic and getting us the information that we needed. I think we're at the exact right spot. Joe said it correctly in that if we were to cancel the contract now, we'd basically be without trash service for 18 months to 2 years. So that's just not acceptable. But I also think we need to send a message to Republic that our residents were disappointed and we want to see how we can improve service going forward. So I think this is the best possible way to do that. So before I call the vote, anyone else? No?
If I
Yeah,
could just say too, just on that note, we're obviously still continuing to talk with Republic on all those matters and stuff too. So we'll continue to do that even with this extension and everything. So that doesn't change that. And
Right.
As we've said, we'll continue to do that.
Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to go in the order it's on my screen. So Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay. Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
And then I vote aye as well. So it's unanimous. All right. Thank you, everyone. Regan, I think that's it for us. So if you want to bring the mayor back, I'd appreciate it.
I just sent him a text to tell him he can come back. Welcome back, Mayor.
Thanks, Regan. That concludes our new business for tonight, I believe, and that brings us to future agenda items. Does council have anything that they'd like to see on a future agenda? All right, seeing no one, we will move into council staff comments. And I will start with Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to be adding Will Gavigan to the Covington team on the 19th of March, which will have our patrol spots all filled up. There'll probably be some more movement again starting in April when we trade one person for another person. So a couple people want to leave and we will take in new people to replace them so that we can at least keep our patrol spots all full.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions for our acting police chief Easterbrook? All right, thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Next is Ethan.
No more comments from me tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan. And great presentation on both SoCo Park and the pros plan. Thank you. Don.
Nothing else from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. I am so glad we got that CIP done tonight. Selena.
Hi, good evening, Council. I just want to say that our community development leadership group, so my direct reports and Dustin and our team also, we completed the SEPTED training a few weeks ago with our officers. So our leadership team in CD is fully trained. We've got our 40 hours and folks are really excited to start to implement that. Kind of talking to some of my peers, it doesn't seem like many of them are doing that unless it's already into their code. So I think there's a really great position for Covington. Adam and I have been talking about how we start to incorporate working with the police more closely when it comes to development review and our projects. So there'll probably be more to come throughout the year as we kind of start to implement some of those principles. So I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in the future. Otherwise, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Selena. Casey.
I was just going to mention that we've started receiving applications for the small business grant program. Regan and Siobhan and I reviewed 7 applications today, and we're just vetting them and getting them through the approval process. So I believe Carla was going to do another social media push this week and try to get some more folks interested in the program, but that's just an update on that one.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Regan.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to update the council on our clean team member, the position the council approved. We did interviews, had a lot of good applicants apply, and we selected someone today and gave her an offer. It's not totally official yet, so I won't announce who it is. I don't know if any of you would know her anyway, but we're super excited. She's incredibly passionate about this work and should be starting in the next probably 3 to 4 weeks.
Great. Thank you, Regan. Mark.
There's no executive session tonight, and I have nothing further. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Krista.
I just wanted to mention that we are coming up on 2 years of holding our meetings completely virtually. So March 10th, 2020 was our last in-person meeting, and also my first meeting with all of you. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to get back to in-person soon. That's all I have.
Thanks, Krista. I have a question for council. Would you like me to go on our normal thing or mix it up again like we did last council meeting?
Mix it up.
Yeah, mix it up.
All right, Joe, you're up.
Thanks. So the big thing I have 2 things. One, as everyone knows, I say it all the time, I'm back in school to earn my bachelor's degree. And for the 3rd straight semester, I made the president's list. So if you told me I could do that in high school, I wouldn't have believed you. Secondly, I asked at our last meeting for you all to look over the SCIP federal legislative priorities and give some feedback. If you have any feedback, please let me know now. If not, forever hold your peace. And that way I can report back to SCIP next week.
Any feedback for Joe on this? I am perfectly comfortable with what was presented, Joe. Thank you for having Krista send that out at our last council meeting. And yeah, I'm comfortable with moving forward with what that is.
All right, thank you all, and I will make sure to let you know if there's any changes to it. So appreciate you all. That's all I had.
Thanks, Joe. Jared.
Oh, I thought we said we were going to mix it up.
Yeah.
I
pre-mixed it.
I don't have anything too crazy on Joe's note. This weekend, I graduate with my bachelor's degree. So I'm kind of in the same boat he is. If you would have told me that I would have gone to school and graduated with a bachelor's degree, I would have said no way. But no, here we are.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations, Joe, also.
Ooh, I'm just joking. No, that's really it for me. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jared. Beth.
Just wanted to give a shout out to Krista and Sean and Jennifer for helping with the Covington Rotary cleanup this last Saturday. And also wanted to thank Jonathan for helping coordinate that. I know he's appreciative of all the support, making our city beautiful. Another thing, as you all may remember, we do have a subcommittee for the safety, a safety subcommittee with Sean and Joe and myself. And one of the next steps is to poll our business community to see what their appetite might be for a B&O tax to help support safety, and more specifically like officers or what that might look like. And so both Sean, Joe, and myself are willing to step up and help distribute some of those and reach out to the businesses in the community. And we wanted to find out if there were any other council members that might be available to help with that. Likely would be mid to end of March, maybe early April. So the idea would be that we would divide the city into geographical areas, and we'd each take so many businesses to distribute cards.
So Beth, if I may, I did ask the Covington Chamber Board about their support, and Regan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the board was in full support of moving forward to ask the businesses that, and they were in support of the B&O tax used for public safety. And I would be very pleased to join you to reach out to the businesses to get that support. Am I correct in what that transpired during the board meeting, Regan?
Yeah, I would say they were skeptical of the mention of a B&O tax, but when they discovered the purpose and if there was some proactive measures that we could do with those funds to help improve public safety and engagement with public safety with businesses, then they put their support behind it.
Yeah, and the idea is also to visit businesses that are not chamber member as well, because we're all in this together. And there may even be businesses not in the corridor, home offices, people that have businesses from their homes that we try to reach out to with an online survey, some version of that possibly.
Along with what Beth just mentioned, I've mentioned it to the chamber, and so they'll email the survey out. We put together several survey questions. I work with CDIS as well with that, and so then once we do this, we'll just split it up like Beth was mentioning and go door to door.
Okay. Please count me in, Beth. I'm happy to help. Does anybody else? Or you can just get back to Beth at a later date as well.
Or Sean too. I think he's going to speak more to that meeting.
Okay.
When he gives his round robin.
Anything else, Beth?
No, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. And speaking of Sean, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I'll just dovetail on what Beth just said. So the Public Safety Committee has met, and we're starting to develop a spectrum of things that the city can do to improve public safety, from looking at new revenue sources, but also ways for example, for community members to get involved, to volunteer, and help make our communities more safe. So we'll have more information for the entire city council here shortly, but we're also reaching out to other surrounding communities to get input from them on kind of their plans on public safety and what they're looking at doing, and how we might possibly partner with some of those cities. So it's just a broad spectrum of stuff. So we'll get you more shortly. And then I just wanted to echo what Beth said about this weekend's Rotary trash pickup. It was just great. I'm really blown away by the public's response. I mean, I can't tell you how many people were clapping and honking and just really excited to see us out there picking up trash. And if I knew it was that popular, I would have been doing this a long time ago. So, and I think I told some of you there was some really interesting stuff on the side of Highway 18 that's out there. So if you're an anthropologist, it'd be a pretty cool place to go out and do some research. So, and then yeah, just another shout out to Jonathan Ingram for pulling this together. It really went well, and everyone feels really excited about it. So I recommend we do it more often because there's plenty of trash still out there. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Christina.
I felt that coming. A lot. These last, has it been 2 weeks, has felt like 2 months. From finishing off SEPTA training after our first, during our first days during the training to now. And I just want to say thank you to not just our council, not just our staff, but those who I consider friends, and that would be our entire community. I've never felt so much support for something I'm not even in, more than toes deep. But the response of the community and of just everyone has been overwhelming, actually overwhelming. I don't know if for those who were there at the vigil, thank you. That really meant a lot. I was probably speechless half the time, and you could tell. But now that, I think we're on day 14 of the war. By the way, nobody thought it would take that long. They thought they'd be done by day 3. And I'm once again proud to be a Ukrainian. But after this many days, I have a lot more answers and clarity. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But just truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not just me, but my cousins who are still in Ukraine, my aunts who are still in Ukraine, my uncles, some of them with newborns, just they all echo what I'm saying. I should say I'm echoing them, because it's one thing to say it from here, but it's a whole nother thing to be in miles and miles long of a line waiting to escape. So just the deepest gratitude from my heart. And I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Joe, did you have a question for Christina?
No, I just wanted to congratulate her for a very amazing job she did at the Thunderbirds game singing the Ukrainian national anthem.
Thank you. That was hard, but thank you.
Voice of an angel.
Whoa. Love you guys.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Don't make me follow that. I have nothing to compare.
I just drew the names, in preparation.
Right. All right. I don't have anything as deep and meaningful to share, except that our hearts are with you and everyone in our community. I mean, as you know, we have a rich Ukrainian community here in Covington and the surrounding area. Many of our friends and neighbors are going through things that a lot of us cannot even imagine. So yes, we're happy to support. It's the minimum of what we can do. So if we're not doing something we need to do, please point it out. And on that note, yes, litter, super fun Saturday. It was beautiful out. People do really love to honk and wave at people picking up trash. It's really funny. And we had a great, successful basketball season with the Parks Department. I am continuously impressed by the youth athletics that Covington provides to the community. All of my kids have done it, and you know it's great. Even with the pandemic modifications, it's very successful. And I'm really excited to start seeing the Covington Day buzz on Facebook. That's really filling my heart with joy to see finally we're going to get to have that darn parade, because unlike Joe, I love a parade, and I can't wait to see all the little kids throwing candy and youth athletics passing out popsicles. Like, I can't wait. I love all that stuff. So I can't wait to see you all the weekend of July 16th. It's going to be super fun. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Christina, I just want to say it was an honor that you allowed me to speak and read the proclamation that we as a city issued, and that King County Councilmember Reagan Dunn also showed up. Reagan Dunn. I always get your name right, Regan, and that he spoke also. And thank you for organizing that. It was very well, and to have that young person come and sing at the very end, and to hear everybody speak was simply amazing. And thank you for doing that. And like Jennifer said, anything that you feel that we can do to continue to help in any way, please let us know. And I know you're in contact with Kyle and several of the others to just reach out. We're there to help any way we can. I don't think you want me flying over there to use a gun, but anything else. It's International Women's Day. Wear purple today. That's what I've been wearing all day and representing everywhere I've gone. So it's every gal that I've met at my office everybody was wearing purple for that event today. So and it's International Women's History Month. So my girls are actually reading quite a bit about that. Also attended the Southeast Mayor's meeting, Southeast King County Mayor's meeting, and we discussed quite a bit of what's going in the legislature, and every city discussed their ability to contact their representatives and senators, and who has their cell phone numbers of each of the representatives and senators. And it's amazing how some cities do not get their representatives or senators to call them back. So I feel fortunate because we do get Pat Sullivan, Deborah Entman, and Mona Doss being able to contact us back through our lobbyists and also through the city and so we're very lucky with what we have. And then also let everybody know that March 30th, Sound Cities is going to be holding an in-person networking event, their first dinner in 2 years at the Renton Pavilion, like we've done in the past. They will ask people to wear masks if you're comfortable. If you don't have to, but they're asking when you walk in to wear masks. They will have the roll-up door open to bring in fresh air. So it might be a little chilly on March 30th, but we will be there. And Dow is tentative set. I believe he is going to be our speaker that night. So that is coming up on March 30th. And if they haven't already, SCA will be sending out registration information for that. And with that, that is all I have. Thank you all for a very good discussion tonight. I appreciate each of you. and we will move into our second public comment period. Speakers will state their name, address, and organization. Comments are directed to the city council, not the audience or staff, and comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to no more than 4 minutes per speaker. And Jonathan, you have your hand up. Welcome, sir.
Hello, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome, Jonathan.
Excellent, excellent. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who came out for the street cleaning on Saturday. It was a great day. The weather was beautiful. While everybody else was out picking up trash, we actually had so many people show up. We ran out of safety waivers because we only brought 25. We ran out of vests. We almost ran out of grabbers. It was fabulous having a large crowd out there. So many people care about the way the city looks. And while everybody else was picking up trash, I was manning the booth and counting cars and waving the sign at people, and people were honking and waving. There must have been 5,000 or more cars go by in that 2-hour period. And I honestly feel like there must be 10,000 people that saw all these people caring about Covington. And it's a great message to send that we care about the city so much. So thank you for everybody who showed up. And I know we're going to try and do something in the summer, probably at the Hennings roundabout, but we don't have definitive plans yet. And we'd love to see more people cover more area.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you very much for organizing that event. I'm sorry I missed it, but it sounds, I stalked all of you on Facebook, and thank you very much for caring and taking care of Covington. And Jonathan, I really appreciate not just organizing this, but all the other events that you organize to help with this community and with the storehouse. So thank you.
You're very welcome, but I must tell you, at least in the event of litter cleanup, my motives are purely selfish because I really hate the sight of litter.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Anybody else in the audience? Please raise your hand if you'd like to address council. Seeing nobody raise their hand and no executive session needed, we are adjourned at 9:21. Thank you all very much. I appreciate each of you and everything that you do for this community. So thank you and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
All right.